So everyone, Assalamu alaikum. This is Razi from Formanite, and I hope all of you and your loved ones are sound and safe. I'm presenting the paint and coating manufacturing industry that's part of my industrial chemistry course taught by Dr. Hinab. So beginning from early 100,000 before Christ, mineral egg or animal fat was used. Sand, lime, copper, blood, lard, and other pigments were also being used. And in the 17th century, the first modern synthetic pigment, Prussian blue, was discovered. That was the century of enlightenment, the 17th century when Thomas Child built the first American paint mill in Boston, Massachusetts. However, it wasn't until 1867 that this company began mixing paint for consumers. In 1930, stone mills was used to blend the pigments. These days, sand mills and high-speed dispersion mixers blend the dispersible pigments. So the global paints and coating industry is a major subset of the international chemical industry. Coatings refer only to any type of fabric that is applied to an object's surface for functional or decorative reasons of a product. Coating paints have two components that are unreactive. Whenever they are placed together, they undergo a chemical reaction. Reaction may take some time depending on the room's temperature. The final result is hard, tough coating that has great adhesion. Paint manufacturing industry manufactures various paints, timber finishes, and other surfaces coating products to decorate and protect surfaces against wear, weather, and corrosion. Key products include paints, varnishes, lacquer, and stains, as well as fillers, putties, and paint thinners and removers. So they consist of pigments suspended in solid or paste vehicles such as soil or water. With brush or roller, a spray gun, paint is applied in a thin coat to various surfaces such as wood, metal, or stone. So there are basic two types, the lacquer and enamel. Lacquer considered best because it's shinier and thicker, but can bubble and crack if not applied properly. Drying time also are different for lacquer paint versus enamel paint. Lacquer dries very quickly, enamel a bit slower. Enamel paint is made from alkyd resins that is dissolved in a solvent, and the solvent evaporates in the first stage. It forms a stacky liquid. The resin reacts with the oxygen in the air and forms a hard coating. The difference between the enamel and lacquer paint lies in their solvents. While enamel paints may use for spirits, there is a lacquer to serve the purpose of the thinner in lacquer paints. Lacquer paints soften over a period of time, whereas enamel paints remain hard for a long time. The market share. Paints and coating market is valued at USD 153.38 billion at present and projected to attain 204.57 billion by 2028 at a compound annual growth rate of 4.2% during the forecast period 2022 to 2028. Market growth. This is mainly driven by increasing demand in the construction industry, with the automotive, general industrial, oil, wood, aerospace, trailing, and packaging coating markets also driving demand growth. The international market, the world's top 10 paint and coatings companies will all have operations around the world, but mainly in the US, including Sherwin-Williams, which is the largest paint company based on revenue. The remaining top international paint brands are more geographically diverse, whereas Asia accounts for 50 to 55% of the total steady growth production, with a regional market value of only estimated 77 billion US dollars. On the right side, we can see the top 10 paint producing companies. So the market is as the companies are spread all around the world from North America, Europe, Asia, Pacific, South America to Middle East and Africa. Talking about the national market, it was 37 billion, around the $306 million. The industry has been going strong, ranging 3 to 7% since 2014. Architectural segment accounts for about 81% of the total paint consumed in the country, and it's expensive also. Catered by about 20 organized sectors, the Pakistani paint industry has multinational paint producers such as ExxonMobil. They have two segments, the decorative ones, having brands like Dulux and Paintex, and the performance coating segments brands Cycons, Dynacoat, and International and ICI Auto Paints holds a major share. Others are Jordan, Kansai, Nippon. The local companies in 110 unorganized sectors, producers accounts for 34% of the total industry. They cater to the vast market of the semi-urban and rural areas. Their prices are the most decisive factor in buying the paint brand. a Bursley, Piper, Diamond, Apple Masters, and also. Main components of paint include pigments, resins, additives, and solvents. So there are different pigments, binders, and fillers mixed with the diluents to form paints. Sorry for the background. Global raw material usage by component raw materials. So the resins and pigment accounts the most, being 44% to 32.1%, 20% solvents, and 3.8% additives. Now we will be discussing these four components. Paint pigments. Paint pigments are used to give paint its color and sheen. They are placed in two groups, primary and extenders. Organic paint prime pigments are for smaller particle size and generally less stable, particularly to sunlight and heat, or transparent or translucent, give higher chroma, can be derived from plants and plant products, include petroleum blue or green and quinacridone red or violet. Inorganic pigments are opaque with better ability to hide a substrate, lower chroma or brightness, include titanium dioxide, white or iron oxide red. Extenders, on the other hand, includes calcium carbonate, talc, mica, and barytes, to name a few. There are some more pigments that gives variant colors from the inorganic and organic sector, like red. The inorganic pigment cadmium red, red iron oxide gives the red color, and on the other hand, from organic pigments, metallized azurite, perylene gives the red color. There are some more shades of the colors given through by inorganic sector of pigments like carbon black, Rhodium blue, chrome green, viridine green, cadmium yellow, and ultramarine blue. So the paint binders, the second main component. These are the binders that hold all the pigments together by adhering their product paints to the surfaces it painted to, responsible for the mechanical and protective properties as can dissolve in solvents or suspended to form emulsion. They can be inexpensive paints use polyvinyl acetate to bind. Expensive water-based paints use acyclic emulsion polymers to bind. Common acyclic polymers come in a wide variety of type and combinations such as methyl and butyl mercaptylate. Types there are two again, the organic and the inorganic. The organic binders include resins containing fatty acids and polymers, while the inorganic contain silica-based materials like ethyl silicate, alkali silicate, and quaternary ammonium silicates. So paint fillers and additives are used to prevent defects in the coating form, bubbles, pore leveling, flocculation, sedimentation. It controls the viscosity of paint, imparts specific properties to the paint like better slip, flame retardance, UV stability, mold and scuff, sag resistance, and to fasten the drying time. It also reduces the cost, like the quartz sand SiO2 is a filler increasing the abrasion resistance of the paints. You can see it in the background. It's a finely grinded quartz sand. There are some other additives you can see here for different properties like anti-settling agents, drying, light stabilizing, anti-foaming, thickening, and adhesion promoting. So paint diluents, solvents. Solvents act as a carrier that helps bind the pigments and resins together. Agents can be organic like mineral tubes. Most widely used aromatic hydrocarbon solvents in paints are benzene, toluene, mixed xylenes, and some others. Now we will be talking about the paint manufacturing process. Paint manufacturing process. The first step is in the laboratory. Before production starts, each separate paint has a unique formula developed for its laboratory. During this development stage, the paint's quality aspects are comprehensively tested. The laboratory is also responsible for inspecting the raw materials before they go into the product and monitoring the quality during the production process. In addition to above activities, particular attention is also given to research into new materials and paint systems. So the paint manufacturing process, weighing the raw material after being paints tested in the laboratories. The central warehouse stores all the dry and raw materials. This as well as binders such as dextrine and gum arabic, which is later made liquid through dilution. At the start of the production process, the dry raw materials, including pigments and extenders, are weighed accurately to the gram and prepared for transport for the premixing. The premixing department stores the liquid binders and the additives. The correct amount is tapped off, after which the weighed dry raw materials are added. As small amounts of dry raw materials are left behind in the sacks during the process, the paint has to be checked at each subsequent production step against standards for the relevant product according to the color and viscosity. and is adjusted if necessary. So the paint manufacturing process, the first is dispersion, that has two parts, mixing and milling. Producing an artist paint of very high quality is a labor-intensive and specialized process. Pigments are insoluble in the binder, as each of them has properties different from others, which means that there is no homogeneity between all these several components. They therefore have to be regularly dispersed in the binder, that is to say, finely distributed. The dispersal occurs in two steps: mixing operations in paints manufacturing several ingredients used to formulate paint systems. Mixing processes a vital role in achieving homogeneity to mentioned components to get the final paint system. The pigments are supplied in dry powder form with the pigment component held together in clusters. During the pre-mixing, these are turned into small clusters and homogeneously distributed throughout the binder. While in the milling grinding, the final fineness of the product is determined by a triple roll mill. So talking about the first type of dispersion, the mixing, liquid mixing. All paints components are in solid or in liquid state. So these two techniques are to be used. The liquid mixing technique. Most of the paints components are liquid for providing a final liquid state for paint applying. Three processes occur simultaneously to achieve homogeneity, which are coalescence, dispersion, or suspension. Coalescence or dispersion occur dependence on shear or velocity gradient, which resulted from mixing speed of liquid drops, which force drops to deform to dotted drops, increasing due to high energy step produced by dispersion. After deformation, they disperse, collide at each other, and then coalesce. Suspension occurs depending on flow movement inside mixing vessels, which come from speed of mixing, so high-speed mixers are used to achieve coalescence drop suspension. Solid liquid mixing. Solid content of paint system varies and may reaching to 50% or more from contents of paint formula, and usually added in the middle stages of the mixing after adding some liquidous components. This mentioned solid content in a finite powder dissolved in other liquidous components by three processes: suspension, distribution, and drying down of the solid agitation. A suspension condition where no particles remain on the bottom of the vessel for longer than 1 to 2 seconds. This position is achieved by the existence of anti-settling agents and high rotating speed. Distribution means that there is no particle in flocculated state, usually in bottom of mixing vessel. This achieves by using dispersion agents which let off for particles distributing in all directions inside vessel. Drawing down of solids. It is achieved by agitation and represented in mixing a cone shape and around agitator. So these are the different mixing machines used for the mixing: needle machine, the puck mixer pedal machine, and high-speed dispersers machine. However, the high-speed disperser machine is most commonly preferred. Next is the manufacturing process: dispersion type milling. The tinting strength of the paint is increased as pigment is ground fined in the milling. In the triple roll mill, pigment clusters are ground further to desired fineness. During this process, the pigment particles must not get damaged, as this may result in change of color. Well, besides this, they can also be used ball mills. Those are vertical in shape. The three rollers rotate in the opposite direction with different speeds. The first roller turns relatively slow, the second 3 times as fast, and the third 9 or 12 times as fast, depending on the type of mill. The difference in speed helps to grind the pigment lumps, and the paint goes from one roller to the other. The paint is finally removed using a scraper. Filtration. As the rest dried particles and ability to glass balls to be broken in case of using it, so the filtration operation is needed. Several techniques can be used in paints filtration, but screening filtration is more common in painting industry. It's the most widely used filtration equipment. It simply consists of sheen of cross-linked steel with holes for purification of paint. The third step is the paint inspections. The first, there are fine inspection, color inspection, and stability inspections. Fineness inspections include: after the grinding, the fineness is checked using the Heckman bar. The depth of the groove in the bar gradually is indicated in microns. The paint is thinned to a certain viscosity and then applied to the groove and then leveled off. At the point where the pigment particles are larger than the thickness of the paint layer, they stick above the surface of the paint film. At this point, visible to the human eye and the skin alike, the fineness is read off. Color inspection. The new color is now compared against the standard color. Both are applied thick as well as thin so that both the mask tone and the undertone of the color can be seen. There must not be a difference between the new color and the standard color. Stability inspection. In order to ensure that only quality products are sold, each batch is left to stand for a certain time in order to check the stability. After this period, another laboratory check is carried out, and after approval, the paint is filled into containers. So the last and the fourth step is the paint manufacturing, paint filling. The paint filling process is crucial phase in the manufacturing line since it involves significant labor cost, requires high accuracy, and must be completed as quickly as possible. When it comes to choosing equipment from filling paint or related products, one must bear in mind that there are many models that can be adapted to a greater or lesser extent to the specific needs of each client and product. The technologies that are used for paint filling are classified according to the dosing type, the gravimetric and volumetric filling. Several industry projects for filling paints or related products use volumetric filling solutions due to filling speed, high accuracy. This accuracy in the dosing of volumetric filling units has improved due to the emergence of new precision dosing units. The volumetric filling is mainly used for the medium and high productions. So here you can see the whole flowchart process of the paint manufacturing. So the plasticizer, dryers, and solvents are added in the thinning tank, and the additives, binders, and pigments go through the feed hopper. They are weighed over there, then they are mixed, and then we do the milling where all the three ingredients are added. From there, they go into a thinning tank, screening is done, and then they are filled in the filling machine. They are being labeled and packaged to the storage. Environmental hazards related to the paint manufacturing. The process of paint creates a lot of byproducts and waste. The waste generally presents high level of chemical oxygen due to the presence of oxygen substances used as solvents, preservatives, styrene, acetylene, benzene, phenols, etc. In addition, product waste contains heavy metal residues that come from the pigment used. The Environmental Protection Agency categorized paint and coating waste as hazardous if oil-based or non-hazardous if latex-based. Some states and local governments are even more restrictive on categorizing waste paint no matter its composition. It is proven that paint can have a significant impact on the viability of the environment, especially that of aquatic habitats. The chemicals with paints such as tributylene are highlighted as being toxic to and endangered marine life, a fact that was corroborated by the Worldwide Fund for Nature. The study also explored changes in regulations as a result of research that tracked the effects of TBT on oysters, tuna, and other marine life. VOCs have also been shown to impose negative impacts on the ozone layer. The effects of sustained exposure to the chemicals can result in irreversible harm to an ecosystem as well as the health of the human population exposed to or consuming the contaminated water or fish. Additionally, latex paints that is approved to be landfilled can result in inadvertent seepage into the sewage systems. Wastewater treatment is not designed to purge paint chemicals effectively from the water, especially if the spill is concentrated. The inability to manage contaminant as well as the significant risk for contamination of water sources is another reason paint waste needs to be disposed properly, avoiding any landfills. Because of this, paint manufacturers have unique responsibility to produce paints that doesn't harm our environment as well as ensuring it's disposed of properly. Solutions to the environmental hazards. Any paint manufacturing plant must have in-house wastewater treatment facility. Pipe cleaning systems that optimize the pipe cleaning processes significantly reduces the amount of liquid waste in the factory. The facility will treat all the liquids that are generated on site. It will also handle the store water runoff. These facilities must utilize the EPA regulations. They must be monitored 24 hours a day as well, conduct periodic record checks. Any liquid waste can be treated on-site by the standards of the facility. The sludge formed from latex can be recycled and used fuels for the products. Water-based solvents can also be recovered and can use fuels for the other industries. Advanced oxidation processes should be implemented for the sludge reduction. A paint container that has been cleaned can be reused or sent to the local dumping facilities. So this was all for the paint manufacturing and coating industry. I hope you have learned something new from it. Thank you. See you, Amal.